Hi, good afternoon. This is Jan. Um, I'm going to speak today to the standard of care. And because I've been a nurse for 40 years and I'm primarily an expert of OB nursing, we're going to just talk as if we are in front of a group of attorneys dealing with a case involving a mom and a baby, which is um, the kind of case that involves a very high duty of care of the nurse, a very high duty of care of the doctors. And so we work collaboratively as a team to make sure that we address all risks and we immediately deal with those risks. And so let's just speak to that for a couple minutes. And you can call me with any questions. But the most important thing is to thoroughly, aside from anything else you do, read what was done, understand the timeline, and then make your own independent analysis based upon the independent duty of care, the policy and procedure of the hospital, any kind of code that's effective in the state, and put those all together and then paint for yourself a picture. So, standard of care analysis of the duty of the nurse in the same or similar circumstance in any kind of litigation analysis. In conducting a standard of care analysis for the duty, it is critical to evaluate the actions of the nurse, whatever specialty she's in, against the prevailing professional standards for any advanced practice nurse in the neonatal setting. So maternal, infant, NICU, L&D, postpartum, and here's a breakdown of all the key elements. Um, Best to always review the chart. You do not need to write a report first. It's actually not a good idea because anything you document can be used against you. So it's always best to get your story straight, collaborate with the doctor. Do not write anything until you're very, very clear what it is your duty is. You're not there to analyze any kind of doctor's actions. You're there to analyze the nurse's actions, especially if you're a nurse expert. So, could it have involved equipment? So, the nurse always has a duty to use appropriate medical equipment for the situation. Specifically, and I will just get very specific, whether it's the warming table, the endotracheal tube, any kind of E-tube equipment for resuscitation in a manner consistent with training and the equipment's intended use. So, a breach would be that the complaint alleges a failure in selecting the appropriate equipment and the user failed to use proper technique, resulting in a breach and or injury. So both of those have to have occurred, and it has to be a causal relationship between the use of the equipment and the breach for there to be damages. And then inspection and technique, it is the duty of the nurse. She or he has the responsibility to properly inspect any kind of equipment, whether it's an E-tube, a stylet, whether we're using medication, to ensure that everything is in its right place, everything is being used properly. The breach is the failure to recognize that anything was not properly done, and any improper technique which led to breach of the duty and or injury or harm, which was the causal relationship that caused the harm. So monitoring after any kind of performance, it is the nurse's expected duty to immediately see that improvements occurred. Maybe we're dealing with a resuscitation, the baby got better, or the baby didn't, or the mother. Whether we're resuscitating, we're giving blood, we're doing hypertensive crisis. So what are we doing immediately? Are we going up the chain of command? Are we telling the doctor? Are we making sure that the doctor acted? And if not, go up the chain of command again, documenting, intervening, getting equipment. The breach is not doing that, and therefore an injury, which would be the breach of the standard of care, which would make up that causal relationship. And then the response is the nurse is always going backward and forward, looking at the policy, looking at her actions, looking at the policy, looking at her actions, collectively getting together with the team and reporting off. Is the patient doing exactly what the patient should be doing? So did the nurse and or team respond appropriately to any kind of clinical indicators, such as a difficulty with suctioning, a difficulty with resuscitating? Were there foreign objects? Were there not? Was there a surgical procedure where something was left? And the breach is we don't act individually in the hospital, in the medical situation. We're always collectively acting. So any deviation from any expected standard of care, which would mean the nurse failed to act, failed to report, failed to document, so that we end up with an injured patient. So for that, I'm going to close because the actions of a nurse are quick. We always look at policies and procedures. We can bring one of those in. If you want to speak further, you can contact me, the Legal Nurse Consultant Group, Jana Tard. I look forward to speaking and hearing from you. I do this through, again, the Legal Nurse Consultant Group, Jana Tard. I've been a nurse for 40 years. So please reach out to me. Thank you so much.